Hello, people.
Hey there, how you doing? I'm Eric Core, and I'm interviewing Ricky Maymi and also Toby the cat on Tuesday.
Tuesday
Uh,
and Toby, yeah.
yeah, they're here. So
Yes.
just in case we need some backup and like
Yep.
some fact checking in real time, cats are really good for that. And I want to thank Ginger Coyote for connecting us, and we'll put this out on Punk Globe. And
Yes, much love to Ginger always.
and you guys go back to the Mabuhay days, and I don't know, did you know that they just reopened that?
I heard something about that, which I found kind of interesting, but how they can recapture the actual magic is another story. It's
Oh
one thing
yeah.
to open the place; it's another thing to truly bring it back to life, where it's this cultural hub, this epicenter where all this magic is happening. And I can't really see how that's going to take place there now, just what with the state of things, the cost of living, and the way everything's changed, because of that. There's people can't have rehearsal spaces like they used to, or have warehouse parties like they used to, or those kinds of people don't have access to spaces like that unless they're they started YouTube or something. You know what I mean?
No,
So
I do because it
yeah,
used to be walk
back
down
in
the
the
street
80s.
and there would be stuff happening all over the place.
Yeah, before the dot commerce came along, it was every single night of the week there was your choice of
Yeah.
warehouse parties and gigs, and I'm not exaggerating. This was like literally what was going on. It was like you could be out on a Wednesday. You don't even know what's happening that night. You find yourself at Cafe Flore somewhere, some place like that, just to see what people are talking about
Yeah.
is on the menu for that night. And then an hour later, fast forward, you're in some warehouse party in the Mission or in South of Market somewhere, and there's bands playing, and there's DJs, and there's dancers, and there's this whole thing. No one asked you for ID. You probably didn't even pay to get in, and you're there until 5 a.m. and it's Wednesday night. This you were spoiled for choice back then. It's not
Yeah.
like that anymore. And there's no I don't think there's any real impetus or drive to maintain or even kickstart a culture like that in San Francisco anymore. I don't think it's even possible unless it's all a bunch of rich kids. And therefore, how is that going to have any real resonance with anyone when everyone's just cosplaying and having a hobby of, hey, we're so punk rock this weekend. Oh, good for you. Sounds like fun. You know what I
I,
mean?
I
Like,
I think some of it's still happening in the East Bay, but definitely
right.
not so much in San Francisco
And
anymore.
the reason that's happening in the East Bay and not San Francisco is because it's that much more affordable and
Yeah.
that much more relaxed of an environment and community situation where there actually is the potential to create something and get it off the ground and get some momentum and feel like you've have this sense of something's happening. I mean, I don't want to have to be in a rich kid club just to get
Yeah.
that experience. I think that's bullshit. I think the whole point of it in the first place was an alternative to being in a rich kid club. And like, check it out. We can have all this fun without any fucking money. We can have all this fun without having any status or belonging to any reputable class bracket. We're just kids from the streets using our imaginations and creating our own fun because that's the only way we're going to have any. See, no one's really thinking like that anymore. Everyone's too busy, wanting to be a millionaire.
Yeah, no, I always think of it, it's like it's kind of America's original sin. It's like this idea that everybody can be a millionaire and some days those will all be my friends. So, they just don't know it yet. And so people like kind of pass them on everything they do and then just don't live their lives because they're just planning to get that next step.
That's right, because they've bought into that whole system of I got to have status, or what's the
Yeah.
point of anything? Why I can't have a good time unless I'm satisfied that I have status, however abstract that might be. I own a home, whatever. I've got credit debt, whatever your status idea of status is, right? I got to make my parents happy by being $60,000 in debt at any given moment in time. Otherwise, they'll treat me like I'm a loser. You know what I mean? That exists.
Yeah.
This whole wrong-headed ass backwards way of going through life. This is why people have to go through, therapy in midlife, because they get to 40 or 50 and realize they've bought into a bunch of bullshit all these years and spent the best years of their life indoctrinated into this, and then they hit 44 and realize that was all a bunch of bullshit, and now they got to go talk to a shrink about it, and now they're going to go spend all the money they worked their ass off for in the job they got to make their parents happy, to tick their boxes, and to, all that shit, to fall in line. That's the problem with everyone, is they realize they've been falling in line as if that's the best idea they can up with, and it wasn't even their idea. So, you know think for yourself, because I won't be there with you. It's like I was listening to what they were saying when I was 6 years old. Oh, the Beatles are telling me to think for myself. I think I'll go ahead and do that. Look where it got them. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. You see what I'm saying? It's like people just are too fucking spineless to actually do that, to actually think for themselves, to take matters into their own hands and be responsible for their own good time, their own fun, their own culture, their own community, and their own society. It's all relative. So there you go.
Yeah, but I know it's sad though, because like I think about like when I first came to the Bay Area, I came in the early 90s, and it's like it would be okay, at noon I'm gonna be here, at 5 o'clock I'm going to this show, at 10 o'clock I'm going to this thing. But it was always like there was too many choices.
Right. It's if
And
you have to boil it down to, well, what am I not doing?
yeah, I mean it was an abundance of riches. I mean, it was really just it was incredible. And then it's I think that for people who've never experienced that, sometimes that idea of that as a possibility is so remote, but it's like that world can exist.
Right. But you need to have cheaper rent. You need
Mhm.
to have lower manufacturing costs for records and things like that. You need to have, you know, the ability to pay people without them relying on it as their sole source of income. For instance, when you have people who are, working in promotion or working, in putting the events together, any number of departments down the line that involve putting on events, for instance, because events are the ultimate reflection of the culture, right? So
Yeah.
that's, if you don't have the events taking place, you have nowhere for this culture to proliferate. Therefore, it only exists in your imagination, essentially, right? So the cost of living has fucked everything up. Go try to find a local gig in London that's just going to be cool local bands.
Yeah.
You're not going to find it, because the only cool shit going on in London is out of town entertainment. Sparks might be playing, sure, you know, some hip happening thing with a big PR juggernaut campaign behind it might be happening on some any given night. But go and try and find the kids from the streets who were playing punk rock or whatever sounds are from this. You're not going to find it unless those kids, one of them at least, is advantaged, has a silver
Yeah.
spoon up their fucking ass that they've had their whole life. So it's like, don't worry, mates. I'll cover the fucking rehearsal room cost and the Uber rides and lunch and the guitar strings and the posters and whatever down the line. It costs money, is the point. And the cost of everything has gone up. So, the price of petrol for your car to go to your rehearsal room, then you got to pay to park. It's just like, it's going to cost me $100 to go rehearse. I guess I can't afford to rehearse. I guess I can't afford to be in this band. I guess
Yeah.
being in a band is for rich kids. Well, hang on a minute. What the fuck is that about? Since when was rock and roll for rich kids only? You know what I mean? The whole point is this is supposed to be for everyone. This is supposed to be something that keeps people out of trouble, right? Go play in the band. That'll keep you out of trouble. That'll keep you off the streets. That'll keep you from committing crimes. That'll keep you from doing dodgy shit. This is something for you to put your time and attention to that might actually get you out of the fucking gutter someday. So just keep fucking doing this, right? That was the thing, right? That's why we've got all that great fucking music from the ghetto from the fucking 40s and 50s and even before that with the jazz music. It's like
Oh
this was
yeah.
keeping people out of trouble, man. This was
It's what
not
kept me it's what kept me going as a kid.
it's not like, oh, you're rich enough to play clarinet. Why don't you go play your clarinet with the other rich kids? I don't really need to hear rich kids playing music. They don't have anything to express to me. particularly. And that's not to say that, you know, good art only comes from poor people, but gee, you know, most good art
Yeah,
comes
but
from.
I think about like the old country musicians like Johnny Cash and Roy Orbison and all those folks that they grew up as poor sharecroppers and you
Right.
can hear that in their voices. It comes out through the music. There's a
It's
depth.
real.
There's
Yeah.
It's real. Like yeah. They touch a place that feels authentic when you're with the music.
And it's transcendent. It transcends being a poor ass motherfucker or
Yeah.
being a rich kid trapped in an ivory tower. It transcends any of that because it's real, right? And that's
Yeah.
the whole point. And that's the beauty of music is it gets you out of those comfort zones and into a greater sense of wonder, a higher state of being. That's the point. That's the artistic experience, right? So whether it's music or whatever the fuck it is. So this is what we're missing. People don't care about the whys and hows. They just care about the ifs and buts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a big distinction, isn't it? When you break it down, you know, what that means is no one gives a fuck about critical thinking, how we got where we got to, why we got where we got to. They don't care about that. They just care about where are we, right? And
Mhm.
I understand that logic, but I don't believe in that logic, and I don't think that logic is gonna. It doesn't bode well for the future of humanity, because without the critical thinking, all you have is a bunch of fucking zombies.
Well, I think it's also a reflection of capitalism and a desperate quest for more.
Right.
Like that more has become like the prayer. Like,
Mm.
what do you need? More.
Right. Because when I was a kid and when you were a kid, the idea of being a millionaire was this kind of optional thing that you could either go for or not. But it's okay because you're American. You have the right to choose, right?
Right.
This is the way you were brought up to fucking think. Now you take a look around, being a millionaire is not optional. If you're not going for that, you're part of the problem. You're a dipshit. You need to get out of the way for the people who are trying to do that. Being a millionaire is no longer an option. It's now the goal. And if that's not your goal, you're a loser. That's the message now in the United States. That's the 21st century. It used to be an option. Being upwardly mobile was you could either choose to do that or not. Now it's in your best interests. You better fucking do it. Otherwise, you're dead weight.
That's funny. Sometimes when people find out I'm a teacher, they look at me like, "Oh, it's so sad you made such bad life choices."
Well, in the context of get them to elaborate. Say, explain that to me, please,
Yeah.
in relation to the choices you've made and how long have you been around, motherfucker? Let's see where
But
you're
it's
at when you're my age, you little
but
fucking
it's funny because
smartass.
like what I value is serving other people and making their lives better.
Right. Well, there you go.
And
That's what it is.
that's
So it's contextual.
right. So to me it's like that's my richness. So
Right. Yeah, but someone would tell you that's foolish, and
oh,
another,
absolutely.
whereas
Trust me,
another
I've been told
person
that.
would commend you for it and want to give you a warm embrace and say thank you for being you. Right. So there you go.
Oh, I mean, you've managed to like carve out just a phenomenal career for yourself and just do such cool things. And what's kept you going through all this?
Okay, well, I don't know that I could have done any of it if I sort of had this conscious, rigid sense of I need to do this and then I need to do this, and then it doesn't really work that way. For me,
Yeah,
it's just um, it's about truth and freedom, right? It's that's those are the fundamentals. You got to be true to yourself, and you got to have a sense of freedom. You got to feel like you're free to live your life and be who you are, right? So if you can be honest with yourself and you can understand what that means to you and how important it is to have this sense of freedom, that's really the premise right there. That's the starting point. If that's where you're launching off of, and you never lose sight of that, um, good things are bound to come your way. Maybe not in the form of Lamborghinis and McMansions, but maybe in the form of opportunities to have really meaningful experiences where you connect with people in a transcendent way that sort of breaks down the barriers of class and culture and all of these kinds of things. And that's really what's on my mind about it is getting through all that shit. Because I think that's what really separates people. Um, Yeah. So the idea is not to be the cool kid in the cool club in the ivory tower where I'm separated from everyone who isn't just like me. It's really quite the opposite, where it's like, let's just break down all these fucking barriers and just get right with the fact that we're all in the same fucking sinking ship here. It doesn't matter how much credit line you have or what your car is or what your status is or your watch or your whatever, your mail order bride or your whatever it is you're into that is your symbol of how successful you are, right? Your Botox injections. I don't know. I mean, some people, that's the best idea they can come up with. Oh, I just got a $60 million check. I better go get my lips injected, you know, so I look like I have the money I have. Um, this is, people just got to get out of all that. So I was lucky in the fact that I'm well lucky in terms of what I chose to do in life. I grew up with musicians. My uncle Vince it was his birthday yesterday. Rest in peace. He would have been 75, and he was in a band called the Tubes.
Oh yeah, they're
Yeah, white
phenomenal.
punks on dope, right? So
Yeah.
mom and dad went to Hollywood. So I grew up with that kind of craziness, not really having a context for how crazy it actually was. It was just what was going on. So that was normal, basically, right? So here's the Tubes, and it's normal. And right. And then my other uncle was Ed, is Ed. He's still
Yeah.
around. And he was in Zolar X with Zori Zenith and Ricky Swan, who went on to play, or no, he went on to play in Zolar X later. Sorry, it's confusing. He wasn't in Zolar X with Ricky Swan. He was in the Push-Ups with Ricky Swan and Zori Zenith, the singer of Zolar X. Before that, he was in, I think they were called Shady Lady, glam rock band from LA in
Oh,
the early
cool.
70s. Yeah. So anyhow, so there you go. So I'm around these people who have this kind of glam rock background, who are from the Bay Area, and and they're musicians, and they are doing it with their lives full time. So there was nothing indicating to me that that was a bad idea or an
Yeah.
unworthwhile pursuit in life. There was no one deterring that particularly, um, playing music and therefore pursuing a career in it. Um, so playing in bands, playing with Chris Corp as a
Yeah.
teenager, that was one of the first times I hooked up with people outside of school, and just sort of began to see what was possible to create.
Yeah.
At that time, I would have been 13, so I was still pretty young.
And that was
Uh,
the Empty Faces, right?
yeah, and
Okay.
then I was already in school playing music. I was playing saxophone and double bass, so I had it in my head pretty early on. This was my my life. If I can't make
Yeah.
a life out of this, what the fuck is the point of even bothering?
So that
So,
was your normal already.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So that was it. So I think that's a big part of it, is just kind of having some kind of bomb drop in your own mind over it, like the bomb dropped or the penny dropped. It was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I see clearly that people can do this. I have examples of it around me in my family. So, if these guys had been plumbers, I might be fixing toilets now, but they were playing rock and
Yeah.
roll, and they were doing it in a very flamboyant, out there, wild, risque way. So to me, rock and roll was synonymous with danger, adventure, trouble, uh, all of those things, things that threatened one's sense of self and being and all that kind of stuff that made you fucking have to stop and think whether you fucking liked it or not. Right. So that was my understanding of what made it exciting and what made it work and what made it real and what made it vital. So that's how I proceeded. And that's what I was looking for when I started buying records and listening to music. I didn't really care about the genre. I cared
Mhm.
about the danger. I cared about the vitality. I cared about the edginess. I
That's
like,
funny. That was the word I was hearing when you were saying that, because I've always been drawn to the edge, and I
yeah,
always like like when we're talking about your first band, I love hearing musicians' first projects because there's an innocent, but there's also an edge to it where they're navigating a space they don't understand and they don't fully know yet.
And that's where the magic happens.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like I'm always I anytime I get to somebody says it's somebody's first band show playing, I like if I can make it, I'll go see it because
Yeah, because you're seeing this primordial gestational thing that you'll never probably get to see quite the same way again.
yeah, yeah, it's
I
amazing.
get it. In fact, when I'm producing bands in the studio, I try to set the conditions to where they're basically operating in that way. No matter how good of a player they are or how experienced they are, I try to create a scenario where it's just like, you might as well be a 13-year-old who got this guitar last week. In fact, you'd probably be better off for it. You should have left all your fucking learned, I'm so cool and knowledgeable and experienced
Yeah.
bullshit at the door, because that's actually in your way. That's your hindrance. Your experience is your ball and chain. You need to open your mind and forget about your accomplishments and just be a creative entity.
Yeah, I always love it when I go somewhere and I like anytime I'm surprised by something and something just is like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. To me, those are those moments of just pure magic.
Yeah, that's the stuff we're hanging out for.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in my day, as a kid back then, I remember, I was hanging out with punk rockers, I was hanging out with heavy metalers, I was hanging out with anyone who was really dedicated to whatever it was they were into. That's kind of my thing, what was drawing me to this. Like, wow, these kids are really into Slayer and skateboarding and smoking dope. I'm going to hang out with them for a while. Wow, these kids are really into the Grateful Dead and taking acid and sitting on the beach. And yeah, I'm going to go hang out with them for do that for a while. And I would just kind of go from these little tribes. I would go from tribe to tribe, and I was just kind of my own one man tribe. Who, I was the man who fell to earth. I didn't want it. I didn't want to become a part of any of these tribes. I just wanted to frequent the tribes. I just wanted to go from tribe to tribe and draw from each one and cross pollinate to each one and just have this kind of very singular, individual, autodidactical way of approaching interaction with and engaging with counterculture, subculture, all of this kind of underground stuff that the Bay Area was a real hotbed for at the time. You know,
Yeah, and I always love the Bay Area bands because there's always this step out of the box.
yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
always
Well,
found that way.
there is a history of that, and I think the Tubes actually were a big part of that. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
to get people to take to make it an art form, to not take yourself too seriously, but to take that in itself very fucking seriously. So it's like we take not taking ourselves seriously very fucking seriously. So it was this cool juxtaposition going on there. It's like it's funny, but it's blowing my mind. It's
Yeah.
there's humor. It's a joke, but it's not a joke. It's actually damn impressive how they're going about making me laugh my ass off.
Yeah.
And
No,
it's rock
it's
and roll.
there's always been a tongue in cheek and an intellectualism to the Bay Area bands that was just slightly different than a lot of other places.
That's right. And I think the Tubes were a big part of setting that standard. And then from there, you had the Residents and then all the punk rock stuff. And, you know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Beefheart hung around there, I think, for that reason. California back then, it seemed like whether you were Bay Area or LA, it was like you kind of had to go spend time in the other, whichever one you were from. So California was more the same place back then. I think over time it became more of a north-south divide in that way.
Yeah. You spent a lot of time in China and
Yes.
I'm fascinated by like so and one of the things that like I'm just reading about some of the stuff you've done over there and listening to what you talk about it is so I grew up in the Midwest in the 80s
Uh-huh.
and I remember like I would hunt for music. Like the quest for music was like I remember waiting an entire year for an album once where I'd go to the record store and they'd be calling around to other stores around the country looking for this album that I heard existed, but I wasn't quite sure it was real, right? And they're like these holy grail quests almost. But what it did was it was like I think about how music was able to incubate and evolve in ways that I think nowadays I think it's often harder for people. But what have you seen over there? Because you've been part of it for a while. Like how is it evolving over there in that scene?
Well, I haven't been back to China since right for COVID, so I've been missing out on the current stuff. But I do talk to a lot of people there still, and I'm very connected there. So I am aware of what's happening. I just haven't been experiencing it firsthand. I can tell you that since COVID, right before that kicked off, there was this thing going on in China with the labels. See, okay, first of all, to understand the points being made, you have to understand the context and the backdrop of that China exists in terms of its popular culture, right? So it's a big can of worms. It's almost its own interview, but it is worth touching
Yeah.
on because it is fascinating stuff. Um, and it's just something I accidentally, not accidentally, but just kind of serendipitously fell into and became aware of and got involved with. It wasn't something I consciously set out to do. Like anything, you just got to see what happens, right? That's the beauty of it. So, um, as you may see, looking around this space here, I've got a lot of music,
Oh wow, yeah.
a lot of music in here. So my thing, I've been collecting records for many years, and I was in China. Excuse me, I was in Australia where I live half the time. I was at my friend Julian Wu's house. Now Julian Wu is like, I mean, this guy's what would be the American equivalent? He's an event promoter these days, but he's basically the when you if you have any experience with the Melbourne music scene, you know who he is. Because not because he's some bigwig, but because he's the guy who's at every show
Oh, cool.
and has been at every show since about 1981. So he's seen the birthday party. He's seen the boys next door. He's seen them turn into Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. He saw, you name it, the scientists, Hoodoo Gurus, and yes, the Triffids. He saw their very first shows when they came to the eastern states of Australia. So Julian Wu is a fixture of the Australian or the Melbourne music scene, but really the Australian music scene, but particularly in Melbourne. And he's one of my best mates. Luckily for me, he's a lovely guy. And I was at his house one time in 2012. I used to stay there all the time. And he used to have all kinds of musicians living there. He had Roland S. Howard was living in his house. He had David McComb from the Triffids living in his house. All these people and bands on tour would go stay there. Pavement, all these people would go stay there over the years. And he's a renowned chef, so he would be having barbecues
Oh,
for everyone in the backyard. And it's like if you're an indie band on tour, you could do a lot worse than finding yourself staying at Julian Wu's house and using his backline and having him barbecue for you because you don't want to be blowing money in Australia because you're a long way from home. So he's this great facilitator of an underground DIY music world, and he has been for decades. And everyone there knows that about him and appreciates that about him and loves him for it and respects him for it. And he's a very respected, admired, loved individual. He's a very humble, gracious, loving, really real kind of guy. Australia is cool. There's not a bunch of pretentious shitheads around like there are in New York, LA, San Francisco, London. Australia is a little more, we're on an island together. Let's just get along. So they're a little more like that. And Julian's great. One day I'm at Julian's house. He just got back from China. He's half Chinese. He's Chinese Australian. He went out to visit some relatives in Shanghai he'd never met before and went up to Beijing. He came back. He had a suitcase full of CDs, punk rock bands, indie rock bands, post punk bands, experimental avant-garde folk bands, you name it, he had it, right? Mainstream pop bands, every kind of band. But you see, these in China, they didn't grow up listening to the Beatles. They didn't grow up watching MTV. They didn't grow up with punk rock. They didn't grow up with any of that shit. They didn't have access to Western popular culture as we know it and take for granted. The whole world grew up with the Beatles, except for China.
Yeah.
So that's why their understanding of rock and roll is quite interesting because they didn't grow up with it in real time the way the rest of the world did. They didn't watch the Beatles become popular and break up. They didn't watch punk rock come from out of nowhere. They didn't watch T-Rextasy become born. They didn't watch the advent of MTV. They didn't have any of this.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's true because I think about how like formative those points. I remember when Elvis died. Even I mean, it's like all those things were so significant.
It doesn't mean shit to these people.
Yeah,
Okay. Right. This is the point I'm trying to make.
right.
It's like rock and roll means something different over there. And you wouldn't even be able to comprehend this without actually going there and meeting these people and understanding their history and understanding the lack of history that they just don't share with you. They don't have it.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. Jimmy Page was there hanging out in a nightclub, in a punk club a few years ago. My friend Michael, the Westerner who lives there, who started the label, went up to some of the young Chinese kids in the rock scene. Hey, that's Jimmy Page over there, And they're looking at Michael like, who? Oh, oh, he's like one of the most amazing guitar players from one of the most influential rock bands to ever
Yeah,
exist. And they're just like, well, he looks old and like he needs to go home and go to bed. And that was the end of the conversation. Like they don't have a context for why
right.
they should care, why they should be impressed, let alone why you should be impressed or why you should care. It means nothing to them.
Yeah,
They're more interested in what their buddy with the two-stringed homemade instrument from down the street is doing than the old white English guy. They don't give a
that's
fuck
cool.
about the old white English guy. They give a fuck about their creative friend down the street who's found a new way of playing a broken guitar. That's going to mean way more to them than some old white guy who's staying in a five-star hotel and has accomplished something they have absolutely no context for.
Yeah.
So you can go to China and try to be a rock star, Jimmy Page. It ain't gonna work, dude. You know what I mean? The only people who are gonna care are the other Westerners there. The only other people, you know what I mean? See what I mean? This
Yeah.
is how it is. And this is why it's so fucking cool. Because they're operating on a whole other logic system around this shit. Right? So their exposure to Western popular culture is something that never really happened until the mid to late 80s, when two things happened. A middle class was born that started going on holidays and returning. See, in the 80s, there was a new phenomenon in China. Chinese people with money who go to other countries and come back home. Wow, what do you know? They didn't defect. They didn't fuck off on a one-way ticket because guess what? They're still doing that to this day. So the fact that you had people going home by choice was impacting the culture because those people were going home with cassette tapes of Lionel Richie, Phil Collins, YMUK, whatever, right?
Right.
So suddenly you're sitting in someone's apartment, you're Chinese, you live wherever the fuck it is you live over there, pick a city with 20 million people in it, there's about 50 of them. And here you are and you're hearing this music and you're like, okay, cool. I guess I'm being exposed to Western popular culture right now.
Well, I like one of the things I'm gleaning from what you're saying too is like, growing up in the States, there's so much tribalism around music.
Yes.
And I can see where like there that wouldn't influence anybody there.
Right.
Where it's like you just grab something it's like somebody walking into a wine shop buying a bottle of wine because the label looks interesting.
Right. No, we know what they do. They buy every bottle of wine that's not from there and take them home and see which one they like best. They
That's
do
so cool.
music. I'm getting to this. So,
Yeah.
and so I'm
Okay.
glad you picked up on that because yes, it is a lack of tribalism that gives them an advantage. It means
Yeah.
they can hybridize all of these different styles with a freedom that Westerners would not do. because Westerners don't have that kind of freedom because they're too bound to their tribalistic way of thinking,
Yeah.
right? So that's well spotted, my friend, because I was going to touch on to this. So remember, I said two things happened. And the first thing happened was these middle class people coming home with their cassette tapes. Oh, I bought the. It's called a CD. It just came out. It says the Beatles. Cool. All my white friends really like this music. Every person I met in the university over there, they recommended this. So I thought I'd bring it home and share it. So now you've got middle class Chinese people sitting around the house listening to the Beatles for the very first fucking time ever in 1985 or 86 or whatever it is. This is no joke. So you got this happening, this new phenomenon, right? Mixed with, if you remember, in the mid to late 80s, and I mean, I've talked about this shit in interviews before, but I'm so fascinated with it. I think it's a story that needs to be told more than once. Um, in the mid to late 80s, with the advent of CDs and the re-licensing and remarketing of so many people's music, for instance, television, the Velvet Underground, the Ramones, all these people whose music was coming out on CD for the first time, Joy Division, all this shit, right? Well, you see, here's the problem with that. It's great that it all came out and was available to get, but what they did was this. The record labels, everyone wants CDs now. Here's what they were doing. They were releasing music like that on CD, but they were doing it in the same way they were doing the Beatles. So it's like, okay, you pressed up 50,000 copies of the White Album on CD. Those are going to sell. But your
Right.
50,000 copies of the Velvet Underground and Nico aren't going to sell. So guess what happens to those copies that don't sell, Eric?
They wind up in China.
As landfill.
Love it.
Check this out. So what you got now is dump junkyards, right? Dumps, city dumps, trash heaps, landfill, right? CDs. It's called duku. That means to cut. You know when you're looking at used CDs and then one of them
Right.
cut in the spine or a hole. Duku, Douku, means to cut. They call this duku culture. In China, duku culture came along, and that was, hey, if you go to the dump every 3 weeks or whatever it was, there's a shipment that comes and it's all Western media that isn't, it's been voided from retail. And this stuff's going to end up as landfill. But guess what? The people at the fucking docks who take this stuff to the junkyard, they've got friends who work market stalls in the village and they're selling Western media. They've got VHS tapes, they've got records, cassettes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Take this landfill and we're going to bring it to the market stalls and we're going to sell it. And not only are we going to sell it, we don't even know what the fuck it is other than it's Western media, right? So we're just going to sell it by weight. So what that meant was, remember that store Clothes Contact? Oh, it's $6 a pound. Come buy
Yeah.
for the clothes and pay $6. It was the same thing. As many as you can carry, right? So what you had was kids going to the yards or going to these market stalls, and they're literally grabbing as much as they can carry. They're not
Yeah.
bothering to find out which one is the punk rock one, which one is the hippie one, which one is the oldies one, which one is the R&B one. They're not bothering to find that out. All they know is this is Western culture. I'm taking it all home. I'll listen to each one of these and I'll decide which one I like and which one I don't. Right? So they're relating to it on a much deeper level. They're not relating to it on a PR based marketing campaign level where it's being rammed down their throat. They're relating to it on a much deeper level, a mystical level, in this way of, on a higher level. They're experiencing Western expression, right? Art in
Yeah.
music,
So cool.
right? So they're having this soul experience. Does this music speak to my heart? That's what I care about. I don't care about what these people look like. I don't care about their haircut. I don't care about what their scene is. I wouldn't even know to care about what they're seeing
Right.
because that is only applicable in this echelon white ass world, right? It doesn't apply here where you're either working for a living or you're living in a slum. It's like take your pick, you know. So it's a different course of survival, right? Let alone set of interests. So
Wow.
so they're relating to this shit in a whole other way. Now, there's a third thing that was happening at the same time, and that was for the first time, guys like you and me in the mid to late 80s were going over there to teach English for a living.
Oh, okay. That ties it all together.
So guys like you and me are over there, and it's 1984, it's 1985. Eric just got out of college, and he's going to go teach English in Beijing. He kind of likes Asian girls, and gee, what a better way to meet them, you know, or whatever, right? But this was
Yeah.
this
No, I totally see that. Yeah.
cultural phenomenon. A certain kind of white guy, right? Certain kind of Westerner. Oh, what are you doing when you graduate high school? Oh, I think I'm going to go live in Beijing and teach English. Yeah, I really like Chinese girls. Cool. You know what you want. Good for you. Whatever, right? People go over there for whatever reason. Point is, this is before the internet. This is before CDs or CDRs, rather.
Right.
So what that means is you and me have to make mixtapes of our record collections. So when we go to China, we've got something to listen to, so we don't feel so homesick. Because where are you going to go buy a copy of the Jesus and Mary Chain Cycle Candy in Beijing? Guess what? It's not going to fucking happen.
Right.
So maybe now it will, but back then it wasn't. You know what I mean? Um, so there you go. So it's a whole other thing happening. You got these Westerners over there for the first time doing these jobs no one's ever really done over there before. They're making friends with their students. The barriers are coming down. Here's another way to make the barrier come down. Hey, Wang Shu, why don't you borrow this tape I made, take it home, and listen to it? And then when you come back and I see you next week, I want to know what you thought about it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And we'll talk about it. Okay, great. Yeah, well, next thing you know, you've got a queue of people in line to borrow this fucking mixtape. The whole class. Oh, it's my turn to take your mixtape home. Well, what's on Johnny's mixtape? Johnny's mixtape has the Jesus and Mary Chain, all the best songs. It's
Right.
first album. It's got My Bloody Valentine. It's got the Velvet Underground. It's got Glenn Branca. It's got Arto Lindsay. Yeah, because Johnny's from New York and he kind of grew up going to fucking CBGBs and he's really into DNA and he's really into all this weird. Okay, cool. Well, thankfully, this guy came to China to teach English and turn these kids onto all this cherry picked, avant garde, cool ass fucking shit from the 80s. Well, they didn't even have to sit through hours of bullshit on MTV to find this stuff. It's all curated for them in advance. These kids are going home. They're like, yeah, I love your tape, Johnny. Yeah, I made a copy of it for myself. I hope you don't mind. Gee, yeah, I love My Bloody Valentine, that one song, because that one song is all I know, because it's the one you put on your mixtape. I
Yeah.
have a copy of their whole album. I live in fucking China, right? So this is the beginning of all this shit. So this Western popular culture thing is like this esoteric, cool underground thing that you're lucky and privileged enough to even find out about without having to leave China to do it. So this is where all this is the birth of all this stuff. And then eventually you have more and more Westerners going over there. And you have more and more Asians coming over to the West as well to study and to learn
Yeah.
and to get credentials. And then they go back and they have their Western education. I graduated University of Oxford. Okay, cool. Well, you're a badass, especially because you decided to come back to Beijing and be the Oxford graduate in Beijing. Oh, full respect to you, right? So that's a whole new thing. So what China's doing is they're actively, consciously with passion, proliferating a middle class.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it since the 80s.
And it's so cool that rock and roll has just kind of organically embedded itself into that.
That's right. That's right. There's no marketing campaigns in China for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's no marketing campaigns in China for, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, let alone Coldplay or, pick a name out of the hat, Bruce Springsteen. They don't want to know about any of that. I mean, not in the same way. It's not that they don't want to know. They're not interested in finding out about it the way the West has signified it's willing to find out. So, they understand the power of suggestion. Oh, my friend likes this, so I'm going to check it out.
Right. Versus so much of our music is defined by corporate gatekeepers.
Right. Everybody's on the cover of the big magazines all in the same week, as if that's out of passion.
It means they're so good.
Right. And everyone loves them so much all at the same time. Everyone at every magazine just loves these guys. Yeah, they love the money they were paid to enact this PR campaign. That's what they love about them is the money, the industry that is kept going here. So the moment, if the first time I've ever heard of you is on the cover of Rolling Stone, I already don't want to know who you are.
Right.
That's like the kiss of death. If I haven't heard someone genuinely excited about who the fuck you are before I find out who you are on the cover of some magazine like that, that's no bueno. That means I am not your target audience
Yeah.
at all. The guy with 9,000 records in his room.
You've inspired me now. I want to go over there and hear some of the music.
Oh, mate. And remember
Right.
what I said about San Francisco in the 80s?
Yeah.
We're spoiled for choice. That's China. That's Beijing. That's the music scene. There's gigs every night. It's a matter of what gig am I missing to be at what other gig.
Yeah.
And that's your social life. That's
Yeah. And it sounds so much fun because like when I go to sometimes I go to clubs and it's like I know the changes before they're going to happen. I know everything the band is going to do before they do it, even if I haven't heard the songs before, because people are doing what they're supposed to do.
right. They're going through the entertainment industry motions.
Right. And I love it when the band gets up there and I'm like, okay, I didn't expect any of this to happen.
Right.
And that's what I want to hear because that to me is like that opens up another door in my brain.
Yeah. That's what you want. You want people who are showing you a whole new way of looking at things.
Yeah.
I know that's possible because I've seen it happen. I've had the experience enough times. It's just been a very long time. But it's more likely to happen with a younger group of people and in a place not as likely. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be a bunch of young kids in London. It's not going to be a bunch of young kids in New York. It's not going to be a bunch of young kids in LA, San Francisco. They're too conservative. I don't care if they've got tattoos on their face and a nose ring and a mohawk. They're conservative because they would rather be fucking. Their end game is the same as an accountant's end game. They want a Mercedes. They want a McMansion. They want all the same shit. And they think their way of getting it is by having the face tattoo and the mohawk and the nose ring. So you see what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, again, it goes back to the tribalism too, where it's like people find their niche and
Yeah.
then the niche defines everything that they're supposed to like, enjoy, find pleasure from.
It's basically joined a church.
Yeah.
Right. I'll be right back. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I'll put us on pause.
Thanks, mate. I'll hurry. Cheers.
All right. Here we go.
Yay. So anyhow, China. It's a fascinating subject in terms of it's counterculture, subculture, popular culture, the music world there. It's there's just no end to the discussion. You have to go see for yourself. Anyone, I would wholeheartedly recommend to anyone who has an appreciation for underground countercultural movements to get over there and experience it before it's too late. I mean, arguably, I'm told by some people it already is too late because the corporate greed,
Right.
set in. See, here's the thing. So I know I'm all over the place. The Chinese bands started touring overseas in the early noughties. So by like 2006, 7, 8, you're starting to see some of the bands have little South by Southwest sojourns and whatnot, get invited to do specific performances. Maybe not big tours, but oh, we're going to Berlin to play this opening, whatever, and then we're flying back. Oh, we're doing some magazine party. I think there was a band who got flown to Paris to do some like Vogue party, and then they got flown right back. So they were beginning to have overseas experiences as a result of their musical efforts, which was kind of an interesting new experience, right? Which therefore has some historical value. And when I got turned on to this stuff, I had to get my hands on it. I didn't want to just hear the music. I wanted to have copies of the records because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm so materialistic when it comes to music. I'm not materialistic at all until it comes to music. I want the material. I want that material.
I'm a vinyl guy too. You're talking to the choir here.
CD, the vinyl. I want whatever I can get.
Yeah.
I want the vinyl and the CD. But anyhow, point is, back to Julian Wu, he's turning me on to this music in 2012. And I'm like, okay, you knew I was going to flip when you turned me on to this shit. And now I got to get my hands on it. And he said, well, it's hard to get your hands on even in China. So I don't know how you're going to get your hands on it outside of China without, having a contact there. So one thing leads to another. Next thing I know, I'm talking to people there. All because I just want the music. It's simple as that. Where do I buy these records at, mate? Oh, well, that's cool. You want to buy them. We don't really have them for sale anywhere. There's a couple of shops in China that sell them in Beijing, but these record stores aren't even listed publicly as record stores.
Oh, wow.
Because that might get them in trouble with the government. If the government knew they were selling records, they might have some explaining to do. Because there's a Ministry of Culture that everything has to get passed. And this is why when Bob Dylan went there, he had to submit lyric sheets for every single fucking song he'd ever fucking written before they'd grant him the visa to come perform in their country.
Oh.
Right. So it's like, even the record stores can't advertise the fact that they're record stores. They have to call themselves like gaming stores or video store or anything other than record store for those reasons. So I'm finding it's not easy to get this stuff. And I said, well, look, I think I can help you sell this stuff because I'm in a band. I'm on tour all the fucking time around the world, and I'm a record collecting nut and nerd. And I release DIY indie releases, vinyl CDs. I go around selling them in indie record stores around the world on consignment. I know a lot of the managers, the shopkeepers, the people that run these joints. And we stop and have conversations anyways. Hey, what have you been listening to? Blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, it's an hour later, and I've just been talking about music with this guy in this shop in Lyon, France, or Oslo, Norway, or Perth, West Australia, Dunedin, New Zealand. It doesn't matter. I have these relationships all over. So I'm telling these guys in China, send me copies of the records I want. Here's 10 records on your label that I want of the 50. And send me 10 copies of each, which means you're sending me 100 CDs in total. I'm going to keep one copy of each of the 10. I'm going to sell the other 9 at a wholesale price that covers the cost of your shipping. So when I get paid for these, I pay you all your money you spent to get them to me, plus your profit margin. Next thing you know, I'm the only guy who's paying them with any regularity. That's when they said, how would you feel about helping us book some tours of North America? Because you're the only guy with any consistency who's showing knowledge, passion, evidence of working this, and you're paying us regularly. If everyone was like you, we'd have a really successful business, right? So it was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Well, we already got them booked for South by Southwest, and we've also got them a show in San Francisco. If you could get them a show in LA show here and a few other places. That would be great. Okay, yeah, leave it with me, no problem, because I know promoters, I know other people in bands who will let them use the back line so they can say they played with this hit band from Beijing. No problem. I'm hooking this up. I'll DJ, I'll tour manage, I'll sell.
Hmm.
So I did all that. So I was booking tours, tour managing the tours, selling the merch, the whole thing, right? Hooking it up, doing the bookings, getting the bands, doing all the logistics, making sure that there was backline, everything, places to stay, all that shit. Playing with bands who were going to be excited about it and help get their people out there, like proper DIY,
Right.
like punk rock. This is how we fucking do it, man. We don't need no fucking Clear Channel bullshit, Live Nation. We can't do anything unless we're playing in front of 5,000 people and charging $100 to do it. Fuck that. We're going to play in this nasty little fucking bowling alley. We're going to beg, borrow, and steal every bit of equipment we can to put on our own scrappy little event here. And it's going to be fucking badass. And it's going to be historical. And there's going to be people telling you they were there who weren't there. Because it's going to be like that. Just like the Sex Pistols. Oh, yeah, I saw the Sex Pistols at the 100 Club. Mate, if all the people who said they saw them actually saw them, that gig would have been in a place 10 times the size.
It's true.
That's my point. And that's what some of these gigs ended up proving to be. And that's why I did it, because I knew this isn't going to be well attended, but it's going to be, people are going to say they attended it because they're going to feel like if they can't say they attended it, that they're like late to the party or whatever. It's really had that sense of it. So I went into it knowing that it had to be done regardless of, the visibility, because no one had ever booked a North American tour for a DIY Chinese band before. So I get to say I'm the first guy who's ever done.
Super cool.
And you know what I mean? And that's what it's like, oh, no one's done this before. I'm doing it because that should have been done before. Anyways, right? So it's not really about wanting to be the person doing it. I just want to know it's getting done. And if I have to be the person doing it, then so fucking be it. And that was my whole approach to it. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for them. I'm doing this for it. I'm doing this because it's work that needs to be done. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It actually should be someone else. But evidently, no one else has worked that out yet. So in the meantime, I'll be the one. And it was cool. And it led to not only booking tours internationally, but it led to exposing a lot of the music to a lot of people internationally in a way that retained the integrity and reflected the integrity of the art itself. And it didn't there was nothing corporate about it. There was no marketing campaign. There was no PR bullshit. There was none of that. I mean, we did have to hire a publicist for the North American tour, but that was just so we could make sure people would find out about it. You know what I mean? Get little articles written. We just got like the real cheap entry level, like the $5,000 package deal with the New York publicity firm. And you think that sounds expensive? That's the entry level.
Oh,
You want these people to even give you the time of day? $5,000.
oh,
You want them to do more than give you the time of day? $20,000. You want them to do more than give you the time of day with a smile on their face and probably do it again the next day? $50,000 to $100,000. Okay, you want them to just take this on as an ongoing concern, like they are officially your publicist from here on out, everything you do, and they come up with reasons to talk about you in the press. Okay, cut us a check for $250,000 and you will become a household name.
oh,
Like that.
yeah.
Not over the course of 6 to 12 months, but like this week. You know what I mean? So, spending $5,000 on a fucking publicist is like, you're meeting them, it's token, right?
Yeah.
You're basically spending the $5,000 so you can say you have one. Oh yeah, we got.
Are there any bands from over there right now that you're pretty like really hot on that you're really excited about?
Say again.
Are there any bands from China right now that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, I know it's so long-winded. Sorry. When
Oh,
the
no, no, no. It's so interesting. It's like I love it.
when the cool indie labels started getting bought up by the big money label, you really noticed the difference in the scene,
Okay.
because what you have now is 50 million more bands, none of them anywhere near as interesting as the ones doing it before the big money came along.
Okay.
So, see, you need your artists to be hungry, and you need them to be doing their art as if their life depends on it, not paying their rent, but their actual existence,
Right.
their actual sense of,
Well, it feeds the soul. It doesn't, yeah, it's
so all my mates in China have been telling me that I'm not really missing much these days,
okay.
other than the bands who were around back then. It's interesting to see how some of them have continued and actually began to make a living at it. See, because here's the thing: no one is pursuing a career in music to make a living at it in China. They're pursuing a career in music essentially as a hobby. Even if they're headlining a festival to 20,000 people, it's a hobby because they didn't go to school and study and graduate university so they could be a rock star.
Right.
They went to school and graduated university because their parents lived on fucking rice and bone broth for 18 years so they could save up everything and send their kid to a reputable institution, academic institution, so they could come home and be their retirement.
Right.
Your children are your retirement in China. So your future is totally hinging on how well educated your kid is and what kind of credentials your kid has. So you eat fucking rice the whole time you're raising your kid, your one kid, right? Because the only
Yeah.
China who don't have one kid are the people who work for Zhongnanhai, are the people who work for the Communist Party, the people who work for the government. If you don't work for the government, your kids don't have siblings, period. And if they do have siblings, they're illegitimate and they're probably known as their cousin and live in another city. So that's how that works.
Right.
So your one kid, that's your future.
Yeah.
You better treat this kid like the fucking Dalai Lama, man, because without this kid, you're fucked. Okay. This kid is going to be the reason you're going to have a peaceful existence on your way out of this world. So, yeah, I'm eating rice because my kid has to go to the fucking University of Wales. My kid has to go to fucking Oxford or Yale or Harvard or any one of these fucking places where I have to be able to afford to send them to. The whole thing, the tuition. I'm eating rice right now. I'm wearing sandals and eating rice and living in a fucking hutong because I have this kid and this kid is my future. This kid is my retirement. I put everything I got into this kid, right? And that's tradition. They've always done it that way. So, it's kind of a weird thing to come home and say, "Yeah, mom and dad, you're the greatest, and I know I'm all you fucking have, but guess what? I'm a bass player in a punk band, so fuck you." It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't matter how good of a bass player or how good your band or how many people come see your band. So everybody who's in a band in China, it's a 5-year plan.
Right.
I'm doing this now with my mates because guess what? Now it's going to be over before I know it. And for me and for my mates.
Right.
And we're all going to have to go do the thing that we were raised to do. And playing in a punk band wasn't it. It doesn't matter how that I get this more than anyone else does. It doesn't matter that I'm the badass at this. It doesn't matter that I actually am starting to make money at this. And actually, it's taking up all my time because now I'm going on 30 date tours of China and playing in front of 500 to 2,500 people every night in sold out concerts that I can't even afford a ticket to. And even if I could, I probably can't get around to buying one in time before they're all sold out.
Hmm. Wow.
This is what my friends in the bands are telling me. Ricky, I can't even afford a ticket to my own gig. I tried to buy
Wow.
tickets for my friends, they were gone. It's just like, okay, well,
Crazy.
you in your mind, you weren't even going to be doing this for more than 5 years. And now you're on 20 date, 30 date tours of your own home. It would have
Oh,
made more sense that you were on that tour in America or Europe. You're doing this in China. A Chinese band is doing this in China. How the fuck did that happen? Oh, because they found out that Chinese music is popular in the West. Oh, really? How did that happen? Gee, I don't know. Must have been people like you who wouldn't shut up about it and turning people onto it. See that it started translating. Oh, wow, these bands are going over to Europe and touring and coming back, and they've got fans. Bird Striking, their first record, banned from release in China due to sensitive lyrical content. Couldn't get past the publishers,
wow.
right? I told this to my bandmate, Anton, who's got his own indie label through Cargo Distribution. He said, really? I'll put their record out.
Nice.
So there you go. Banned in their own country, too hot to handle. Gee, that just made them the most popular band from that country. International.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Funny how that works. The Tubes were banned from 14 states.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was a big part of their whole image. That became a selling point.
Oh,
You
that's so
can't go
funny.
see these guys in Oklahoma. You can't go see these guys in Kansas. You can't go see these guys in, down the lines.
Right.
Gee, well, if I can't go see them there, I better go buy their fucking record then. Okay, I guess I'm going to go buy their record because they're so hot to handle. Right?
That's so cool.
That's how it works. So, yeah. So the scene in China, it's some of the bands are still doing it well past the time they believed they would be.
Right.
And they have found ways of keeping the family happy and doing the job and having the career. What it means is the band is an on again, off again thing.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't work out for the people. Like one guy, he was a singer in this band, Snapline, great band. They were produced by Martin Atkins. Martin Atkins from
Yeah.
he was with Ministry, all these people, but
Oh, yeah.
went over there and worked with this band Snapline. You know what a snapline is?
No.
The snapline is the line they draw in chalk around the dead body.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's a
Okay.
snapline. So this band is called Snapline. And the singer is a big shot code writer, computer guy,
Right.
lives in Seattle.
Oh,
It's just like, okay, well, your band is from Beijing and you're like the coolest guy in Beijing and you live in Seattle because you're writing code for some fucking ex Silicon Valley transplant moved to Seattle company, right? So this is what
yeah.
happened. These guys, yeah, well, that's cool that everyone loves my band. I got to go be a fucking working stiff next year for the rest of the unforeseeable, you know, future, whatever. So it's a weird one. These guys, it doesn't matter how successful they are. It could all just be over like that.
Yeah. But I think it's funny because it's in some ways it's paralleling the West too, where it's gotten so expensive to survive that I think everybody I know in bands is like, we have to work to play music.
Right.
It's almost impossible not to. So it's,
Right. That's right.
it's,
And whereas if you look at England in the 80s or late 70s into the 80s, all through the 80s, Rough Trade Records,
yeah.
99 pence 45s released every week. You can go into HMV. Oh, right. Here's a new release on Rough Trade. It's a 7-inch. It's a 45. It's 99p. I heard these guys are pretty. I'll just buy it.
Yeah.
See, that's how it was. You could just go. Okay, so you have these manufacturing costs that are that low. So running a label is that much easier because you can put out a 7-inch by a band, a 45 single, and sell it for $1
That's
brand
amazing.
retail, right? So the idea of going record shopping was an idea that could pop into anyone's head because you could go to a record shop with $5 and walk out of there with three or four or five 45s. You just got a handful of music for nothing, right? Mixed with the fact that people were able to go document their ideas, their intellectual properties, their creations, and
Right.
released by people like Rough Trade for $1 because they had squatters' rights and they were on the dole. So you couldn't move them out of where they were living. They moved into a derelict dwelling and fixed it up before you had a chance to kick them out in time that they couldn't legally call it their own. And they're on the dole, right? So they've got the time and their expenses are low enough, just like everyone else's.
Right.
That what does that mean? That means they've got a place to live where they can create music. They've got a dole check that allows them to, do whatever, eat while they're rehearsing, whatever. Okay, cool. Now we're going to do a deal. Oh, we're playing these gigs and everyone loves us. Rough Trade wants to do a single. Cool. Well, we'll record it this week and it'll be out the following week and it'll be a pound, 99p. Okay, cool. Well, that's why you've got so many bands in the 80s with singles on Rough Trade who got single of the week in NME because these people were able to give it their undivided attention and they were able to facilitate it all because it wasn't, you know, so ridiculous to manufacture these things.
Yeah.
Labels had accounts with manufacturers. Oh, we just pay you what we owe you at the end of the year. And yeah, maybe some of these didn't profit, but some of those did, and that pays for everything. So we're just going to go ahead and, yeah, put out that band's single. Go ahead and do it. Yeah, put it in there, put it in the queue. Great. Bam. Okay, check it out. We got a single out on Rough Trade. Cool. I'll just go buy it. It's only 99p. Fast forward to 2026. You want to put out a 7-inch on a label? Well, guess what? That 7-inch
Oh, it's expensive.
is going to cost about $5 just to produce. Then you got to start shipping them around. Then you got to sell them. Then you got to, wholesale to a retailer. By the time they're hitting a shelf in a shop, they're $15.
Yeah.
$15 for the same fucking thing you could have bought for 99 pence, you know, back in the 80s. So it's different times. It's different set of circumstances. The conditions are not such that allow for that kind of thing to happen. People say, how come there's no good music anymore? Well, there you go. That's it right there.
Yeah.
No one can afford to make it. Everyone's too busy having a job so they can have a band. But by the time they've got the time to go rehearse with their band, they're already knackered and have to get up and go back to work again the next morning so they can afford to have their band that they don't have time to be in. So it's a hobby. It's weekend warrior bullshit. It's cosplay. And that's not what I do. And yeah, it's hard to not see it as that's what everyone's doing who's under the
Right.
age of 50. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's
And I don't even care if you're some big, popular, successful band. If you're under 50, you're doing it as a hobby. I don't care if you're number one in the charts. It doesn't mean the same thing to you
yeah.
because you haven't been around long enough to even know what that fucking means. You're just a kid, and that's fine. Be a kid, and more power to you. But it's just a different world. It's a different operating system.
Yeah.
We're not operating on the same system. We're operating on a system of $15 7-inches, $40 LPs, by a bunch of kids who are making them on Ableton or whatever bullshit computer nonsense they're using to make their quote unquote music. When it's really just sonic wallpaper and a bunch of fucking cutting and pasting. It's just like Photoshop with sound. So, not interesting.
I know a guy who was actually kicking bands out of his studio because they'd come in and they'd be so unrehearsed and they'd be like, "Oh, you can just fix all this on Pro Tools." He's like, "No, you can just leave and learn to
Right.
play instruments."
That's right. I've heard a lot of these stories these days, actually, about how people are they're not having it. They're like, no, you've got to actually come in and play that song from start to finish. And if you're not good enough to do that, then I don't, then you're wasting my time, even if I'm selling it to you. That's right. Because no one even knows how to play a song from start to finish anymore.
Yeah.
There's 4 bars. Oh, here's 8 bars. I've made records that way, so I understand the pros and cons of it. But it's ultimately not that interesting, and it's not a technique to rely on. It's a
Oh,
technique you utilize in case of emergency. You need to fix
yes.
something.
Yes.
Just because you can use it to fix something doesn't mean you rely on it as your whole means of creating something. So anyhow, there you go.
Yeah, well, definitely. Hey, so what are some of the things you're working on right now?
Okay. Let me think. I'm about to go on tour. In a couple days, I'm flying to Germany to rehearse for a week, and then I'm coming right back to California to play 4 concerts with my band, the Jonestown Massacre. And then we're going to Hawaii to play a couple of nights, and then we're off to New Zealand, and then we're off to Australia, ending a tour in Australia in the city where my son lives, Perth, West Australia. So I'll be hanging out with him at the end of it, which is great. Came from there. It's nice when the visits aren't so far apart. So yeah, right now I'm really focused on this tour I'm about to do. It'll all be over by the end of April, and then by the end of March, and then through April I'll continue to be in Australia, and I will be overseeing a couple projects that I'm already involved in. Production. I'm producing a record for a guy named Michael Savage. He lives in Perth, West Australia. This is album 5 of his and album 4 of ours that I'm producing for him. And Graham Lee from the Triffids plays pedal steel on it. It's
Oh,
beautiful,
cool.
really beautiful record. And then I'm working with these other guys out in Sydney, Arctic Lake, and we're midway through an album as well. So yeah, ongoing production work. There's always various production projects in various states of completion in various locales in the Western world and further afield. So there's always something going on. There's always something that's about to wrap up. There's always something that's just getting off the ground. There's always something that's midway through. There's always something, and there's always a tour, it seems. So just more business as usual for me. Trying to stay busy, because unlike those cool kids from China, I didn't get sent to college to become a molecular biologist or a brain surgeon or an accountant or anything like that. I'm just a rock and roller. I committed to that a long time ago. I'm willing to couch surf ad nauseum. I'm willing to eat macaroni and cheese and top ramen until the day I drop dead, if that's what it takes to retain the freedom to be who I am and what I am. And that's all it's about. And that's what success is freedom and understanding the importance of that. It's not about McMansions. It's not about Ferraris. It's not about trophy brides. It's not about accolades or status or any of that. I'm up here and you're down there bullshit. It's about I'm free to not be any fucking where if I don't fucking feel like it.
No, I appreciate your commitment to what you're doing because
That,
it's really cool. It's really cool. I've just, this has been so much fun talking to you.
I'm glad to hear
Uh,
that. Nice
yeah,
and
really enjoyed this. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
well, I'm pretty reachable. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on all of those. Rick Maymi or Ricky Maymi. You Google my ass, you'll find it. You'll find it on one of those. And yeah, I'm pretty. I've got nothing to hide, so I'm easy to find.
Right on. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been
Thank
great.
you. Hope to see you sometime.
Oh, I hope so. Maybe in San Francisco.